Growing up in our house, it was clear who held the spotlight: Nathan, my older brother by 5 years. He was the golden boy, literally and figuratively. He had the best of everything, the latest clothes, the newest gadgets, while I made do with hand-me-downs and second-hand toys. Nathan was undeniably handsome, a trait that had our parents, especially Mom, beaming with pride. I swear, Nathan could be a model if he didn't have his heart set on business. Mom would gush to her friends over coffee, while I sat in the corner, a book my only company. It wasn't just his looks. Nathan was charming, a social butterfly who could light up any room he walked into. I, on the other hand, was plain, average features, too shy, too awkward. It was like living in the shadow of a celebrity while being invisible at the same time. Even at family gatherings, it was Nathan this, Nathan that. Did you hear about Nathan's latest school project? It's just remarkable. Dad would announce proudly, while I'd quietly help set up the food or clean up the dishes, rarely a part of the conversation unless prompted, and even then, only briefly. The disparity in attention only grew as we got older. When Nathan was accepted into one of the most prestigious colleges in the country, it was as if he had single-handedly secured our family's legacy. The celebration lasted for days. It wasn't until the local news flashed Nathan's face across the screen that things took a turn. Local student accused of multiple frauds, the headline screamed. He had been charming his way into wealthy women's lives, only to scam them out of their savings. The room was silent as the news anchor detailed Nathan's exploits. Dad turned off the TV, his hands shaking. Mom sat down, her face pale. "How could this happen?" she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. I don't understand," Dad muttered. "We gave him everything." I stood in the corner, watching the unraveling. It was the first time I'd seen them doubt their golden boy. The next day, we gathered in the living room, a family meeting that felt more like a crisis summit. Nathan, of course, wasn't there, he was in custody. "Claire," Dad started, his voice heavy. "Your mother and we've been thinking." Mom nodded, taking over with a tremble in her voice. "We were so focused on your brother, we didn't see." "We're so sorry." Their apologies hung in the air, thick and unexpected. I sat, unsure of how to respond. I'd spent years in Nathan's shadow, never quite resenting him, but never feeling enough either. "We want to make it right," Dad said. "We've decided to use some of our savings for your college, Claire. It's your turn now." I was taken aback. College? I'd given up on that dream, figuring I'd find a job and move out as soon as I could. "Really? Are you sure?" "Yes," Mom said firmly. "It's your time to shine." The weeks that followed were a blur. I enrolled in college to study accounting, something solid and reliable, opposite of Nathan's erratic charm. My parents attended my orientation, something they'd never done with Nathan, too confident in his ability to navigate anything. At the orientation, Mom squeezed my hand. "You're going to do great," she said, a little too enthusiastically. I smiled, squeezing back. "Thanks, Mom. I'll try my best." College life was a balancing act. I juggled classes with a part-time job at the campus library, where I shelved books and helped students find resources. One of my coworkers, Jenna, a chatty history major, quickly noticed my reserved nature. "Hey, Claire, you always bolt out of here as soon as your shift ends. "Want to grab coffee sometime?" Jenna asked one evening as we were closing up. "I'd like that," I said, surprised by my own willingness to connect. Maybe it was the normalcy of her invitation, or maybe I was just tired of being alone all the time. During coffee, Jenna talked about her thesis, and I shared a bit about my family, careful to leave Nathan out of it. It was nice, talking to someone who saw me just as me. "You're pretty cool, Claire. Don't let the quiet thing fool anyone," Jenna said with a grin as we left the cafe. Balancing school and work was tough, but fulfilling. I'd study late into the night, sometimes struggling to keep up, especially when group projects came up. I found that I could lead a team well, something I'd never have discovered if not for my new environment. Alright, team, let's divide up the work based on what parts of the project we're strongest at, I suggested during one group meeting, feeling a bit like a conductor trying to lead an orchestra. You seem to know what you're doing, Claire. I'm glad you're our group leader, one of my classmates, Mark, commented. His words boosted my confidence more than he could know. Each day was a learning curve, filled with small victories and setbacks. I learned not just about accounting, but about who I was beyond my family's expectations, or lack thereof. I learned that I was competent, that I could make friends and influence people, and that I was more than just the quiet girl from a troubled family. As the semesters passed, I continued to excel academically, and eventually, graduation day arrived. Walking across that stage to receive my diploma, I felt a surge of pride. I had done it, on my own terms, without the overshadowing success of my brother. After graduation, I landed a job at a private accounting firm. It was everything I had hoped for, challenging, engaging, and it offered me a sense of independence I had craved for so long. I moved into a small rented apartment, not far from work, and began the adult part of my life with enthusiasm. Every paycheck was a step toward my goal, saving enough for a down payment on my own place. The evening had settled into a quiet routine when my phone rang, slicing through the silence of my small apartment. I glanced at the screen, Mom's name lit up. My heart sank a little. Calls this late were unusual. Mom? What's up? It's late, I said, trying to keep my voice light, but the tremor in hers cut straight through me. Claire, it's your dad. He had a heart attack. He's gone, Claire. He's gone. She stuttered out between sobs, each word heavy and suffocating. I felt the phone slip slightly as my grip loosened in shock. What? How, Mom, are you okay? Where are you? My questions tumbled out, frantic and overlapping. I'm at home. The paramedics, they just left. They couldn't do anything, she cried. I could hear the shattering pain in her voice, the kind that echoes and reverberates through your own soul. When I arrived, the house was eerily silent, the kind of silence that screams in your ears. Mom was sitting in the living room, a crumpled tissue in hand, her eyes lost and red. I rushed to her, kneeling in front of her, taking her hands in mine. Mom, I'm so sorry, I whispered, my own voice breaking as the reality set in. She just nodded, pulling me into a tight hug. He was fine this morning, Claire. We were planning to visit the market this weekend, she murmured into my shoulder, her voice muffled by grief. The days that followed were a whirlwind of funeral arrangements and relatives pouring in to offer their condolences. Did you get a hold of Nathan? I asked one afternoon as we sifted through old photographs of Dad to display at the service. Yes, I did, Mom replied, her voice flat, her hands pausing over a picture of Dad holding a much younger Nathan on his shoulders. He said he was too busy to deal with nonsense. He asked about the inheritance first thing. When I told him everything was in my name, he just hung up. The funeral was a quiet affair. Dad's old friends, our extended family, and neighbors came to pay their respects. The absence of my brother was noted, his empty chair a stark reminder of his chosen detachment. After everyone had left and we were alone again, Mom took to sitting by the window, staring out with a vacant gaze. I tried to engage her, to bring her back from the edge of her grief, but the light in her had dimmed. Mom, you're not alone. I'm here, I reassured her one evening, my hand squeezing hers. She turned to me, her eyes wet with unshed tears. I know, honey. And I'm so grateful for you. I wish things were different. After the funeral, life settled into a new kind of normal. Mom was quieter these days, her smiles fewer and more strained. I tried to fill our home with light, cooking her favorite meals, talking about my day at work, anything to lift her spirits. But often, I caught her staring out the window, lost in her thoughts, the joy that once lit up her eyes, dimmed by sorrow. One evening, as I was clearing up after dinner, I noticed Mom was on the phone in the other room, her voice barely above a whisper. Curiosity piqued, I paused, the clatter of dishes ceasing. No, Nathan, I can't keep doing this. Yes, I know, but... Her voice trailed off into the quiet hum of the living room. She never mentioned she was in touch with Nathan, and alarm bells rang in my head. When she came back into the kitchen, her face was pale, her hands trembling slightly as she sat down at the table. "Mom, what's going on? Who was that on the phone?" I asked, sitting across from her, my tone more stern than I intended. She sighed, a deep, weary sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "It was Nathan," she admitted, avoiding my gaze. "He's been calling more often, asking for money." "Money?" I repeated, anger starting to bubble inside me. "Why are you giving him money? Especially after he didn't even bother to come to Dad's funeral." Mom wrung her hands, her eyes moist as she looked up at me. I know it's wrong, but he's still my son, Claire. He says he's in trouble, that he needs it to get back on his feet." I stood up, pacing back and forth as I tried to process her words. "Mom, he's using you. You can't let him do this, especially not now. He didn't even care enough to show up when Dad died." She nodded, tears spilling over her cheeks. "I just thought, maybe if I helped him, he'd come around. See what he's missing, see that we still love him." I stopped pacing, kneeling beside her chair, taking her hands in mine. "Mom, I love you, and I know you love Nathan. But you can't set yourself on fire to keep him warm. He's an adult. He made his choices. You need to think about your future now, about what's left for you." The next day, when Nathan called again, I was with Mom, standing by her side for moral support. She put him on speaker, and her voice was firmer this time, more resolute. "Nathan, I can't send you money anymore. You need to find another way to sort out whatever mess you're in," she declared, a slight tremor in her voice but her resolve clear. There was a pause, and he scoffed, and I could almost see his sneer, through the phone. "Fine. Don't come crawling back to me when you need something." The line went dead, and the silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of severed ties. Mom sighed, a mix of relief and sorrow in her exhale. "Did I do the right thing, Claire?" I squeezed her hand, reassuring her with a nod. "You did, Mom. It's time we both started healing." From that day on, Mom stopped sending money. It was a tough decision, one that left its own scars, but it was necessary. Nathan had made his choice, and we had made ours, to move forward, no longer at the mercy of his demands. It was early morning when I got the call that changed everything again. The sharp ringtone pierced through the silence of my apartment, a harsh reminder that life was still full of unexpected turns. "Claire," Aunt Linda's voice came through the phone, sounding strained and urgent. "You need to come to the hospital right away. It's your mom." Dropping everything, I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding with fear and my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The corridors seemed longer than usual, echoing with the sounds of my hurried steps. When I finally reached her room, Aunt Linda was waiting outside, her eyes red-rimmed. "What happened? Is she okay?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. Aunt Linda shook her head, her voice breaking as she spoke. "It was a heart attack, Claire. She didn't make it." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I leaned against the wall for support. My mom, the constant in my life despite everything, was gone. Tears welled up in my eyes, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. "I'm so sorry, Claire." She went peacefully in her sleep, Aunt Linda said, pulling me into a hug. We stood there, holding each other, sharing our grief. After a few moments, we stepped into the room to see her. Mom looked peaceful, as if she were just sleeping. I approached the bedside, taking her cool hand in mine. "Mom, I hope you're at peace now," I whispered, my tears dropping onto the white hospital sheets. "I'm going to miss you so much." Aunt Linda placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. "She loved you, Claire. She was so proud of the woman you'd become." Leaving the hospital, the task of planning another funeral loomed over me. Mom deserved a beautiful send-off, something dignified and full of love, just like she was. I took it upon myself to organize everything, wanting to ensure it reflected the warmth she always brought into our lives. During the preparations, I called Nathan, feeling it was only right he knew, even if he hadn't been there for her at the end. "Nathan, it's Claire. Mom's passed away. We're organizing the funeral for this Friday," I said, my voice void of the anger I once felt towards him. There was a pause, and then he replied, his voice devoid of any real emotion. "I see. I won't make it. Just handle whatever needs to be done." Life after Mom's funeral felt strangely quiet. The house was filled with echoes of a past that felt both close and distant, a reminder of everything that had transpired. Just as I was beginning to find my rhythm in the silence, it was shattered by an unexpected and unwelcome return. It was a cloudy Thursday afternoon when I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Peeking through the curtains, my heart sank. There stood Nathan, stepping out of an expensive-looking car, with a woman I assumed was his wife, based on her familiar face from some of the pictures he used to share online. Her appearance was bold, almost too bold, with bright red lipstick and heavy makeup that made her look out of place against the backdrop of our modest family home. They didn't bother with the courtesy of a phone call or even a knock. Nathan marched up to the door, his face still handsome, but etched with the hard lines of a life recklessly lived. He didn't wait for an invitation, pushing the door open and striding in with an air of entitlement. "Claire, long time no see," Nathan said, his voice dripping with a familiarity that we no longer shared. He pushed past me without waiting for an invitation, his wife following closely behind. "What are you doing here, Nathan?" I managed to say, my voice firm, despite the turmoil inside. "We're here to stay, obviously." "Heard you've been living it up in Mom's house all by yourself," Nathan replied, throwing his jacket on the couch as if he owned the place. His wife smirked, scanning the room like she was appraising the property. "Nice place. We'll take good care of it, don't worry." I felt a flash of anger. "This is still Mom's house, and you can't just come back and claim it like nothing happened. You didn't even come to her funeral, Nathan. You have no right to be here." Nathan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the empty room. "Oh, come on, Claire. We're family. And as the only son, don't you think I deserve a piece of the pie? Well, we're here now, and we're staying. Get used to it, or get out." I was shaking, my hands balled into fists at my sides. "This is not happening. You will leave. This is my home." Nathan laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "We'll be back with our things in 3 days. Make sure you're gone by then." As they turned and left, the door slamming shut behind them, the finality of the threat hung heavy in the air. I was alone, the echoes of their laughter and threats bouncing off the walls of the home I had come to cherish as my sanctuary. Furious and shaken, I dialed Aunt Linda immediately. She answered on the second ring, her voice a comfort as always. "Aunt Linda, Nathan just showed up. He's trying to kick me out of the house. He said he and his wife are moving in," I managed to say, my voice tight with emotion. "Oh, Claire, that boy has gone too far this time," Aunt Linda replied, her tone hardening with each word. "Don't you worry. I'm going to come over. We'll sort this out together. Nathan needs to be put in his place, and I'm just the one to do it." After we hung up, I paced through the house, each room filled with memories of my parents, of a happier, simpler time. I wasn't going to let Nathan destroy what little peace I had managed to find in the aftermath of our parents' deaths. With Aunt Linda on my side, I felt a flicker of hope. Together, we would face whatever came next. 3 days had never passed so slowly. As the sun rose on the third day, the tension in the air was palpable. Aunt Linda arrived early, carrying not only her purse but also an air of resolve that was both comforting and intimidating. "Morning, Claire," she greeted me as she stepped into the kitchen, where I was nervously sipping my coffee. "Ready for this?" I nodded, setting my mug down with a clatter. "As ready as I'll ever be, I guess." "Thanks for being here, Aunt Linda." "Wouldn't be anywhere else," she assured me, her voice firm. "Now, let's go over what we'll say when they get here." We didn't have long to wait. Before long, the sound of a car engine broke the quiet morning. Through the window, I saw Nathan and his wife pull into the driveway. My heart started pounding, but Aunt Linda's calm demeanor helped steady me. They didn't bother knocking. Nathan opened the door and strode in as if he owned the place, his wife trailing behind him, her smirk more pronounced than ever. "Claire, get out. We're here to take what's rightfully ours," he barked, his wife nodding in agreement behind him. Aunt Linda stepped forward from where she had been standing just out of sight. "Nathan, you should be ashamed. After all your sister and your late mother have been through, you show up now, making demands?" Nathan sneered. "Save it, Aunt Linda. We know there's no will. Claire, move out. This place is ours now." That's when Aunt Linda, with a calmness that belied the tension in the air, waved an envelope in front of Nathan. "Actually, your mother did leave a will. And I, as her appointed executor, have it right here." Nathan's eyes widened as Aunt Linda held out the envelope. In a swift move, he grabbed it, tearing it to pieces. His wife laughed, a sound that echoed off the walls mockingly. "There, no will, no proof. This house is ours now," Nathan declared triumphantly. Aunt Linda just chuckled, the sound making Nathan's smile falter. "You think that was the original?" "Oh, Nathan, that was just a copy. The real will is safe with the notary." She reached into her bag and pulled out another document, unfolding it with deliberate slowness. "Here's what your mother really wanted," Aunt Linda said, her voice steady and clear. She began to read aloud. "To my daughter, Claire, I leave the family home and a sum of $150,000, for she has shown the strength and compassion of character that represents our family's legacy. To my son, Nathan, I leave our family Bible, in the hopes that he will find guidance to overcome his vices and find a path to redemption." The words hung heavy in the air. Nathan's face went from red to pale, his earlier confidence deflating like a punctured balloon. "This isn't fair. You can't do this to me. I deserve half of that money, Claire," Nathan shouted, his voice echoing with desperation. "You deserve what Mom decided to give you," I replied, my voice firm despite the shaking of my hands. "And if you don't leave now, I will call the police." Nathan looked at his wife, then back at Aunt Linda and me. His wife pulled at his arm, muttering something under her breath. After a moment that stretched out painfully, they turned and stalked back to their car. The morning after Nathan left for good, I stood in the quiet of the house, the early light casting gentle patterns across the floor. The house felt different today, like a weight had been lifted, a place just for me now, full of potential and promise for the future. I made my way to the kitchen, where Aunt Linda was already making coffee. The aroma filled the space, comforting and familiar. "Morning, Claire. How'd you sleep?" Aunt Linda asked, handing me a mug. "Better than I have in weeks," I admitted, taking a cautious sip. "It feels like I can finally breathe again." She smiled, pulling out a chair at the table. "It's your fresh start, right here. What are you planning to do first?" I joined her at the table, my mind buzzing with ideas. "I think I'm going to start by redecorating a bit. Make this place more me. And then, I might even start looking into what it takes to start my own accounting firm. It's been a dream for a while." "That sounds wonderful, Claire," Aunt Linda said, her eyes twinkling with pride. "You've got such a good head on your shoulders. I've no doubt you'll make it happen." Later that day, I walked through each room, imagining the changes I'd make. In the midst of my planning, the doorbell rang. At the door stood my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. "Claire, dear, I heard about your mother. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I heard your brother was trying to cause some trouble," she added, a hint of concern in her tone. I nodded, not wanting to spread the family drama too far. "Yes, but it's settled now. I'm just looking forward to some peace. Well, if you need help with anything, my son is always around. He's good with repairs, and he's cheap too," she offered with a chuckle. "Thanks, I might take you up on that. I'm planning some changes around here," I said, grateful for her support. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. painting, moving furniture, and even a few repairs courtesy of Mrs. Thompson's son, who turned out to be as handy as promised. Each brushstroke and each new piece of decor transformed the house into a reflection of my personality, something I had longed for without even realizing. One evening, sitting in my newly arranged living room, the changes weren't just physical. I felt changed too, more confident, more grounded. The house no longer felt like a battleground of family conflicts, but a sanctuary of my aspirations.